Students, in lesson 7.9, we will be working on multiplying mixed numbers. Our essential question for this lesson is, how do you multiply mixed numbers? So in the past, when we've drawn models and used a number line to scale, we're actually going to do the actual multiplication today. So we're going to start with the unlock the problem real world. 1/3 of 1 1/4 acre park has been set aside as a dog park. Find the number of acres that are used for the dog park. So we're going to focus on this green square here, and it says, is the area of the dog park less than or greater than the area of the 1 1/4 acre park? Well, we would say that the area is less than, because the park we know is a whole number, 1 1/4, and we know that 1/3 of this area, or in fraction form, 1/3, will be set aside for the dog park. So step 1, we're going to use a model, and it says shade the model to represent the whole park. So it says, think the whole park is 1 1/4 acres. So what we would say, we would shade one whole and 1/4 of the other whole. Step 2, double shade the model to represent the part of the park that is a dog park. So now we know the dog park is broken up into thirds. So I'm going to use this red to cut up our holes into thirds. So that's 1/3, 2/3, and then 3/3. So now we are going to double shade the area that is going to be represented by the dog park. So that double shaded, the dog park is 1 1/3. So we're going to shade this whole 1/3 out of the other 2/3. So 1/3 out of 2/3, total of 3/3. It says draw horizontal lines between the rectangle to show thirds, and we did that in red. How many parts does each rectangle show? So if we think about it, we have 4 by 3. 4 by 3 would be 4 times 3, and 4 times 3 is 12. So next it says, what fraction represents all parts which are shaded twice? So what we can see is in this first hole, we have 4 parts shaded twice, and we know that there are 12 parts in this hole. Over here in this hole, we still have 12 parts. However, this time we only have one of them double shaded. What fraction represents all of the parts that are shaded twice? Well, we would say 4/12 plus 1/12 is equal to 5/12. So 5/12 acres has been set aside for the dog park. Another way we can do this, boys and girls, is we can rename the mixed number as a fraction. So step 1, it says write the mixed number as a fraction greater than 1. So this is something that we worked on a little bit last week. So we think we have 1/3, that's okay, we don't need to rewrite that. But when we have 1/3, we would say, well, 4 times 1. So again, boys and girls, it goes back to what we did last week. We would say that we could rewrite this mixed number 1 1/4 as 5/4. And then we can multiply the fractions across. So we would have 1/3 times 5/4, or 1 times 5 is 5, and 3 times 4 is 12. So 1/3 times 1 1/4 is equal to 5/12. Now we're going to go on to example 1 for these particular problems. And in example 1, we're going to rename the whole number. So that's another way that we could solve these sort of type of problems, boys and girls. So it says multiply 12 times 2 and a 6. Write the product in simplest form. Step 1, determine how the product will compare to a greater factor. So 12 times 2 and a 6 will be less than 12 or greater than 12. It will be greater than 12 because we say the whole number here is 2. Step 2, write the whole number and mixed number as fractions. So we have 12 over 1, which comes from this guy, and then what we do is we write this. We say 6 times 2 is 12, plus the 1 left over is 13. So now we have 12 over 1 times 13/6. Next, multiply the fractions. So if we multiply the fractions out, 12 times 13 would give us 156 over 6, because 1 times 6 is 6. And we know that this isn't simplified. We know that we could simplify this and divide 6 out of the top and the bottom. So we would get 26 over 1 or 26. So now it says write the product in simplest form. This was our product after we multiplied the numerators together, the denominators, but we know we had to simplify it 2 steps over. So 12 times 2 and a 6 is 26. Now we're going to go through example 2, which is using the distributive property, something which we've worked this year. So it says multiply 6 times 4 and an eighth. Write the product in simple form. So step 1, rewrite the expression using the distributive property. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the 6 outside of here, and we're going to make sure that we rewrite out 4 plus 1/8. And why we do 4 plus 1/8 is we're just breaking apart the mixed number from the whole number from the fraction. So it's just a little bit easier to multiply them out here. Now we multiply 16 by each number. So 16 times 4, which would give us 64. And then we're going to do 16 times 1/8, because that is the fraction that's left over here. So 16 times 1/8 would give you 2, and that's how we have the 2 down here. And then we add the 2 plus the 64, and we get 66. So 16 times 4 and 1/8 is 66. Number 1 says explain. Why might you choose the distributive property to solve number 2? So what we can say is it is easy to find 16 groups of 1/8. And we think about that, that's well because we know that 8 has 16 as a multiple. So that's why it's easy to do that. And it's much easier to do that. You don't have to do extra math. It's mental math. You can do it in your head. Number 2 says, when you multiply 2 factors greater than 1, the product is less than, between, or greater than 2 factors. For this particular example, in the last 2 problems, we saw that it would be greater than the 2 factors. This is because the product equals the greater factor times the number greater than 1. So in this lesson, boys and girls, it's very important to keep in mind that there are many different strategies for multiplying mixed numbers. It's important that you're able to take away the 2, perhaps 1 or 2 of the lesson that you feel as though you can access and use when having to multiply mixed numbers.